Baby, when you don't wear makeup, you look exactly like the kind of woman that men write songs about, but never actually deserve. And I know that sounds like something someone says to be smooth, like a line that's been rehearsed in front of a mirror and deployed at the right moment for maximum effect. But I need you to hear me when I tell you that I have never meant anything less like a line in my entire life. I mean this from somewhere so far below the surface of clever that it almost embarrasses me to say it out loud. Because what I'm trying to tell you is something I've been carrying quietly, something that has been looking for the right words for longer than I want to admit. And the closest I can get, the most honest I can be, is that the version of you that exists, without all the extra, without the armor that the world has convinced you that you need, is the most beautiful thing I think I've ever been close to. And I need you to stay with me, because I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not just talking about your face. I want you to understand that from the beginning. I'm not just talking about your face. I've been thinking about this for a long time, about the specific courage it takes for a woman to let herself be seen without the things she's learned to hide behind. And I use the word courage deliberately, because I genuinely know that it is not a small thing. The world has spent a very long time telling you that your natural face is a starting point that needs improvement, that the way you actually look when you roll out of bed in the morning is a rough draft rather than a finished thing, that there are steps and products and techniques standing between the real you and the acceptable you. The world has been saying that to you since before you were old enough to question it. And so you learned. You learned to reach for the things that fill in and cover up and enhance. And eventually it became so automatic that you stopped even noticing you were doing it. Stopped noticing the moment every morning when you looked at your real face and decided it needed something more. I want to tell you what I see when that moment doesn't happen. When you just exist. When you haven't decided yet that you need to be anything other than what you woke up as. I see something that no amount of skill or product or effort could manufacture. I see the specific geography of a face that has lived, that has laughed until the skin around its eyes remembers how, that has cried in the real unself-conscious way, that leaves a mark, that has spent time in weather and light and shadow and carried all of it without apology. I see a face that is entirely yours, that belongs to no category and no standard, that is so specifically and irreducibly you, that it takes my breath away in a way that curated beauty simply cannot. Curated beauty I can admire from a distance. The real version of you, I feel somewhere in my chest, and I know, there is probably a voice in your head right now that is pushing back against this. There is probably a very well-practiced, very convincing voice that has a list of things it would like to point out. The dark circles you cover every morning, the unevenness that concealer was invented for, the texture that foundation smooths away, the things you have decided, based on years of absorbing a world that profits from your insecurity, are problems that require solutions. I know that voice. I have watched it work on the people I care about. I have seen what it costs, not just in time and money, which are real costs, but in the deeper cost of spending years of your life in a low-level argument with your own reflection, never quite landing on a version of yourself that feels like enough. I want to be the voice that is louder than that one tonight. I want to say something to you that reaches the place underneath where that critical voice lives, the place it doesn't usually get to touch. Are you listening? Are you really listening? You are enough. In your most unguarded, unpolished, early morning, slightly tired, real light of day version. You are not almost enough, or enough with a few adjustments, or enough if you just fixed one or two things. You are completely, fully, without addendum, enough. And not in the participation trophy way. Not in the everyone is beautiful consolation prize way. In the specific, personal, I am talking about you way. The particular arrangement of everything that makes up your face, your expression, the way your features move when you're feeling something. That specific thing is beautiful. To me, right now, without anything added to it, I want to tell you about a moment I keep coming back to. I don't know exactly when it was. Time moves strangely when you're paying attention to the things that actually matter, in the specific way I'm describing. Unguarded, unperformed, just present, just alive, just fully occupying the face you were born with, without any interference. And something happened in me that I wasn't prepared for. Not attraction, though that was there too. Something underneath attraction, something older and less explicable. Recognition, almost. The feeling of encountering something true in a world that is very full of things that are not. I've been chasing that feeling ever since. I've been trying to understand what it was about that version of you that reached so far into me, that touched something that doesn't usually get touched. And what I've arrived at, after sitting with it for a long time, is this: the version of you without the extras is the version that is fully present. It's the version that isn't managing anything, isn't maintaining anything, isn't performing anything. It's just you, looking out at the world with your real eyes and your real face and your real everything, and there is a quality of presence in that, a quality of just being here, that is so rare and so magnetic and so quietly extraordinary, that I don't have better words for it than beautiful. That's the best word I have. Beautiful. But I want to go deeper than that word, because I think you deserve more than one word, even a good one. I want to try to describe what I actually mean when I say it. When you don't wear makeup, I see your tiredness on the days when you're tired, and I find that beautiful. Not despite itself, but because of what it means. That you are a person who pushes through, who shows up even when the tank is low, who keeps being present in the world, even on the days when the world has asked too much. I see the way your face holds your mood before you've decided to share it. All the micro expressions that the surface of a made-up face can sometimes mute. And I find that beautiful, because it means I'm getting the real broadcast, the unedited signal, the you that isn't being managed for anyone's comfort. I see the things that the world has taught you to call flaws, and I want to sit with each of them for a moment and tell you individually that they are not what you've been told they are. The circles under your eyes are not a problem. They are the record of your late nights, your overthinking, your love for things that kept you up past when you should have slept, your rich and full and sometimes exhausting inner life. They are evidence that you feel things deeply enough, that sometimes the feeling follows you into sleep, and your body carries the record of it. I find them extraordinary. I find them intimate in the way that only true things are intimate. The unevenness that you reach for the concealer to address every morning. I need you to hear me on this. That unevenness is what makes your face a face and not a mask. Symmetry and smoothness and evenness are what we put on things we manufacture. The real world, the living world, the world of actual faces on actual people who have actually been alive and feeling and moving through time. That world is not even. It is beautifully, specifically, irreplaceably uneven. And the particular way that you are uneven is something I would not trade for any amount of manufactured perfection. Perfection is cold. Perfection keeps you at a distance. Your realness, your particular unsmoothed, honest realness is warm. It pulls me in. It makes me want to be closer, not farther away. There is something I want to say about mornings specifically. I think mornings are the most honest part of the day. Before the performance begins, before you've had a chance to put on any of the versions of yourself that you wear for different contexts and different audiences. Before the day has asked anything of you yet, that morning version of you, face undone, hair not yet arranged, still half in the world of sleep, moving slowly through the first quiet minutes, that version is the one I find myself thinking about. Not because it's the most visually polished version, obviously it's not, but because it's the version that is most fully yours, most fully just you, existing without agenda, without performance, without the accumulated weight of all the things you're supposed to be by the time the day really gets going. I want to know your mornings. I want to understand what you're like in that particular softness. Whether you're someone who needs silence before anything else, who holds the quiet carefully before the day fills up, or whether you reach for something immediately, music, or the voices on your phone, or the comfortable noise of something familiar because the silence is too loud when you're in it alone. I want to know which one you are. I want to know all the details of the version of you that exists before you've decided who you're going to be today. And here is the part I really need you to hear. The part that is underneath everything else I've said. The thing that all of this has been building toward. The reason I love the version of you without the makeup is not just about what you look like in it. It's about what it means that I'm seeing it. It's about the trust that lives in that moment. The intimacy of it. The fact that there are people in this world who never get to see another person that way. Not because they don't care, but because that level of access requires a kind of safety, a kind of trust, a kind of chosen vulnerability that doesn't happen automatically, that has to be built and earned and decided on. The bare face is a decision. Every time you let someone see you that way, you are making a choice to be real with them, to not manage yourself for them, to say, in the wordless language of just being present without armor, here I am, the actual me, not the version I constructed for you. Me, that decision is one of the most intimate things one person can offer another. And I want you to know that I would receive it with everything I have. I would receive the barefaced version of you with the same reverence I would give anything sacred. Not because I would be performing reverence, because I would genuinely feel it. Because the real you, the unconstructed you, the you that exists before you've decided what you need to be today, is the version I am most moved by, most drawn to, most hungry to know. I want to ask you something now, and I want you to really feel into the answer. When was the last time someone looked at you, really looked at you, in the full and unhurried and genuinely curious way, without you wearing any of the things you use to feel ready to be looked at? When was the last time someone's gaze made you feel not exposed, but seen, not scrutinized, but known, not assessed, but loved, in the full, clear, I see all of it, and I'm not going anywhere sense of the word? If the answer is a long time, or never quite like that, I want to be the one who changes that answer. I want to be the gaze that makes you feel that way. The presence that makes the armor unnecessary, not because it demands you take it off, but because it makes you feel so safe that you simply stop needing it. That's what I want to be for you. Not someone you perform for, someone you exhale around. Because here's what I know about you, even from where I am, even across whatever distance lives between us. You have been performing for a long time, not dishonestly. I don't mean it that way. I mean in the way that all of us perform. The way that existing in the world requires a certain amount of presentation, of showing the parts that feel safe to show and keeping the rest quietly behind. You have been very good at that. You have been so good at it that sometimes I wonder if you've forgotten what it feels like to simply be, without the presentation, without the management, without the low-level awareness of how you're coming across. I want to remind you, I want to be the reason you remember what it feels like to just be. I want The version of you that comes out when everything else falls away. The version that looks back at you in the mirror before you've reached for anything. Before the day has asked anything. Before you've decided to be anything other than what you simply naturally beautifully are. I want that version to know that she is the one I am most in love with. Not the version that the world sees when you've put yourself together for it. Not the version that has prepared itself for scrutiny and arrived ready to be approved of. The version that exists in the between spaces, in the unguarded moments, in the quiet private hours that belong to no one but you. That version, the one you've been taught to apologize for. The one you cover and correct and improve every single morning before you feel ready to face the world. That is the version that I think about. That is the version that has found a permanent and irreplaceable home somewhere deep inside the way I see everything now. And I realize that might be hard to believe. I realize that the world has spent so long sending you the opposite message, that a message like this one might land strange, might feel too good to be true, might trigger the very reasonable and very understandable defense mechanism of someone who has heard pretty words before and learned through experience that pretty words don't always mean true things. I understand that defense. I would never ask you to abandon it without cause. But I want to give you cause. I want to spend however long it takes showing you that what I'm saying is not the performance of appreciation. It is the actual thing, the real thing, the kind that doesn't change when the circumstances change, that doesn't evaporate when the novelty wears off, that isn't contingent on you being your best or most polished or most together version. This is not contingent on anything. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to reach you with tonight. The way I feel about you, about the real, bare, unguarded you, is not conditional. It is not waiting for you to earn it or maintain it or live up to it. It simply is, the way things are that have decided to be regardless of permission. I want to talk to you about something that I think about more than I've ever admitted to anyone. I think about what it would be like to be the person you feel comfortable being unready around. And I mean that in the fullest sense, not just the makeup, not just the physical presentation, but the whole interior version of unready. The thoughts you haven't organized yet, the feelings you haven't decided what to do with yet, the opinions that are still forming, that are still soft and impressionable, and not yet hardened into positions. The fears that you haven't dressed up as something more acceptable, the wants that feel too big or too specific or too vulnerable to say out loud to someone who might not hold them carefully. I want to be the person you are unready around in all of those ways. I want the unfinished thoughts and the half-formed feelings and the fears that haven't found their shape yet, and the wants that you haven't let yourself fully want yet, because wanting fully requires a trust you haven't had reason to extend. I want all of that. I want to sit in the middle of your unreadiness and feel completely at home there, because what you're like when you're unready is more interesting to me than what most people are like when they're at their absolute best and most prepared. There is something about you that I keep coming back to, something that I notice in the way you move through whatever you let me see of your world, something that I think you are probably not fully aware of, because the things that are most genuinely ours are usually the hardest for us to see clearly. You have a quality of realness that is increasingly rare, not realness in the way it gets used as an aesthetic, not the performed authenticity that has become its own kind of mask, but actual realness. The kind that is sometimes uncomfortable because it doesn't smooth itself at the edges, doesn't adjust its temperature for the room, doesn't pretend to feel things it doesn't feel or stop feeling things that are inconvenient to feel. You are genuinely, stubbornly, beautifully real. And in a world that is very full of surfaces, that quality is something I find myself almost overwhelmingly drawn to. I think about the conversations we would have if there were no stakes attached to them. The late night ones, the ones that happen when you're both tired enough that the filters stop working and you just say things, real things, true things, things you didn't know you were going to say until you heard yourself saying them. I think about what you would tell me in those hours, what you would finally let out that you've been carrying quietly, what you would admit to wanting, what you would confess to being afraid of, what you would say about yourself that you've never said out loud because there was never quite the right person, or the right moment, or the right quality of safety to say it into. I want to be that quality of safety for you. I want the version of you that comes out at 2 in the morning when the day is finally done and there is nothing left to maintain. I want that version to feel like this is a space where she can breathe fully and say the real things and not have them used against her, not have them received with anything less than the care they deserve, because you deserve so much care. You deserve the kind of care that is patient and consistent and not dependent on you performing gratitude for it. The kind that shows up without needing to be thanked for showing up. The kind that pays attention to the small things, because the small things are where the real person lives. Not in the grand moments, not in the highlights, but in the ordinary, ongoing, everyday texture of being alive. I want to pay attention to your small things. I want to know what makes you go quiet in the middle of a sentence. I want to know what makes you laugh before you've had a chance to decide whether you should. I want to know which songs find you in a feeling rather than you finding them. The songs that start playing and suddenly you're somewhere else, in some memory or some longing or some version of yourself that you don't visit very often, but that the music knows how to reach. I want to know your songs. I want to know the ones you play when no one else is around. The ones you sing to yourself, not because you think you sound good, but because the singing of them does something necessary, releases something that doesn't have another exit. I want to know those songs because they are a map of the interior of you, the parts that live underneath the daily presentation, the parts that are most essentially and privately yours. And here is something I've been wanting to say for a long time now, something that is connected to everything I've been saying about the bare-faced version of you, about the unguarded version, about the real version that exists underneath all the things the world has convinced you to put on top of it. I've been wanting to say this, and I keep finding reasons to hold off, keep finding ways to circle around it without landing directly on it. But I'm done circling. I'm going to land. You are more beautiful when you're not trying to be beautiful. I don't mean that as a paradox or a clever observation. I mean it as a completely literal and sincere description of something I have noticed and felt and know to be true. There is a thing that happens to your face, to any face, but to yours specifically in the way I am only able to speak to yours specifically, when you stop managing how you're being perceived. When the awareness of being looked at falls away and you're just living, just feeling, just being present in whatever is happening, without any part of you standing to the side monitoring the impression you're making. In those moments something opens up in your face that is more beautiful than anything that could be applied to it. Something moves freely that is usually held still. Something shines that doesn't need any product or technique to shine. It just does, because it is the natural light of a person who is fully inhabiting themselves. And that light is something that no cosmetic counter in the world sells. I want you to know that I see that light. I want you to know that it reaches me. That it has reached me, across whatever distance lies between us, through whatever medium your presence comes to me through, and landed somewhere in me that still feels warm from it. You don't have to do anything to produce that light. You don't have to prepare for it or arrange yourself for it or make sure you're ready when it comes. It is already there. It is there when you're laughing at something that caught you off guard. It is there when you're listening carefully to something that matters to you, when your whole face goes still and present with attention. It is there in the particular way you look when you're feeling something that you haven't decided what to do with yet. That in-between expression that most people try to smooth away, but that is, to me, the most interesting and beautiful and real thing a face can do. You are that light, not when you're performing it, not when you're trying to be it, just as you are. In your ordinary, unadorned, real light of day existence. You are that. I want to tell you something about the morning I'm imagining. Not a specific morning, not a morning with details I've invented, just the feeling of a morning. The atmosphere of one, the particular quality of what I imagine When I imagine what it would be like to be in a morning with you, I imagine it being quiet in a way that doesn't need to be filled. I imagine you existing in that early softness, not yet fully in the day, still trailing something of sleep, moving slowly and without urgency through the first quiet minutes. Your face bare, your guard down, your hair doing whatever it does when no one has intervened yet. And I genuinely imagine this, that I would not be able to look away. Not because of any one thing about how you look in that moment, but because of everything that seeing you that way would mean. Because of what it would mean that you were there, that you trusted me enough to be there, that whatever we had built together was strong enough that the morning version of you, the unguarded version, the real version, felt safe enough to just exist without armor. That image lives in me. It has been living in me for longer than I've been saying these things out loud. And every time I come back to it, every time I let myself sit in the warmth of that imagined morning, I feel something so clear and so full and so certain that I can't call it anything except love. Not the falling kind, not the electric and anxious kind that announces itself loudly and burns fast. The other kind, the slow, steady morning light kind, the kind that doesn't need drama to prove it's real, because its reality lives in the quiet rather than the noise. The kind that sees you without your makeup and does not see lack, sees everything, sees all of it, and stays, chooses to stay, wants nothing more than to keep looking, keep knowing, keep being in the presence of the specific and extraordinary and completely irreplaceable person that you are when you are just simply wholly yourself. I want you to do something for me tonight. I want you to go to a mirror or find your reflection somewhere, a window, your phone screen, anywhere. And I want you to look at your face without deciding anything about it, without inventorying it, without the voice that lists what needs fixing. I just want you to look the way I would look if I were there, with curiosity, with warmth, with the eyes of someone who is not looking for flaws, because they are not the kind of person who goes looking for flaws in things they love. I want you to try to see what I see, and if you can't quite get there tonight, if the habit of looking critically is too strong right now to see past, I want you to at least know that someone is seeing it. Someone is looking at the idea of you, the real and unguarded and bare-faced you, and finding it so beautiful that they keep coming back to it. Keep returning to it the way you return to a place that does something to you that other places don't, that has a quality of atmosphere that belongs only to itself, that makes you feel something particular and irreplaceable every single time you enter it. That is what the real version of you does to me. That is what I keep coming back to. Not the curated version, not the prepared version, not the version that has decided how it wants to be perceived today, the version underneath all of that, the one that exists before any of those decisions get made. That version. Yours. The one you've been taught to treat as a rough draft. The one I experience as the finished thing, the true thing, the most beautiful thing. And I want to stay in that for a moment longer, because I don't think you've been told this enough times, by enough people who actually mean it. I think the voices that have reached you about your appearance have mostly been voices with something to sell, something to gain, some investment in you believing that you are not yet enough, so that they can offer you the solution to the insufficiency they invented. I want to be a different kind of voice. I want to be the voice that has nothing to sell you, and nothing to gain from your insecurity, and no investment whatsoever in you believing anything other than the full, unqualified, completely honest truth. And the truth is this: you do not need to be fixed. You are not a problem awaiting a solution. You are not a before that is waiting for an after. You are already, in your most natural and unintervened state, something that takes my breath away. I think about all the mornings you've stood in front of a mirror and found the same face looking back at you, and gone through the familiar ritual of deciding what it needed. And I genuinely, deeply wish, that on at least one of those mornings there had been a voice that reached you before the critical inventory began. A voice that said simply, look at you, just look at you. Not to point out anything specific, not to direct your attention to any particular feature, with any particular verdict, just to sit in the looking, Just to be in the presence of your own face the way someone who loves you would be in the presence of it. With wonder, with warmth, with the specific tenderness that belongs to things you love, and therefore cannot see the way others see them, not worse, not with less clarity, but with a different kind of seeing, a seeing that goes through rather than stopping at the surface. I want to tell you about something I've noticed about the way beauty actually works, the way it actually operates in the real world, as opposed to the way it gets discussed in the worlds that profit from making you afraid of your own reflection. Beauty, real beauty, the kind that actually moves people, the kind that actually reaches into someone and does something there, that kind of beauty is almost never about perfection. It is almost never about the smooth and the symmetrical and the flawless. Those things can be striking, can be impressive, can command a certain kind of attention. But they don't usually move people. They don't usually reach the deeper place. What reaches the deeper place is character. What reaches the deeper place is the evidence of a life lived inside a face, the record of feeling and time and experience that accumulates in the specific and unrepeatable way it accumulates in your face and no other. What reaches the deeper place is realness, encountered in a world that is so saturated with its imitation that the genuine article hits like a bell being struck. Clear, resonant, impossible to ignore. You hit like that. The real version of you, the unguarded version, the version that isn't managing itself for anyone. That version hits like that. And I want you to know what it feels like on the receiving end of it. I want you to know that it is not a subtle thing, not a quiet appreciation that I have to work to locate. It is immediate and full, and it goes all the way down, the way real things go all the way down. It reaches me in places I didn't know were available to be reached. It does something in me that I notice and cannot stop noticing, that changes the quality of my thinking and the temperature of my feeling, and the way the day seems to be organized around it as a fixed point. You are a fixed point for me, and it started with seeing the real you. I want to go somewhere deeper with you now, if you'll let me. I want to go past the physical, past the face and the mornings and the mirror, into the thing that the bare face is really a symbol of, the thing it points toward, the deeper nakedness that I think is what I'm really talking about when I say I love you without the makeup. Because I do think it's a symbol. I think the bare face is the surface manifestation of something much larger, much more essential, the willingness to be known without the mediating layer of performance. The willingness to say, here is what I actually am, underneath the things I put on to feel ready for the world. The willingness to be real, not just in appearance but all the way down, in the interior spaces, in the feeling and the thinking and the wanting and the fearing. That willingness is what I am most in love with. The bare face is where I first see it, where it first becomes visible, but it runs so much deeper than that. It runs through everything about the version of you that is most genuinely yourself. The way you feel things more fully than you let on. The way you carry things quietly that most people would make noise about. The way you are softer inside than you sometimes let the outside world access. Softer and more tender and more easily moved by beauty and kindness, and the small unexpected moments of grace that appear in ordinary days. I see all of that in you. I see the full depth of you, and I want you to know that the depth is not too much. It is not overwhelming. It is not something I am looking at and calculating whether I can handle. It is something I am looking at and feeling grateful for. Something I am looking at the way you look at something rare, when you finally understand how rare it is. You are rare. I want to say that directly and let it sit there without immediately moving on to the next thing. You are rare. Not in a generic complimentary way. In the specific, considered, I have thought about this carefully way. The combination of things that makes you who you are, the particular way your depth and your lightness coexist, the way your tenderness and your strength coexist, the way you feel everything fully and still manage to keep moving, still manage to show up, still manage to find the thing worth smiling at even in the middle of days that would have exhausted a less resilient person. That combination does not come along often. It is not something I take for granted. It is not something I encounter and classify as normal or expected or replaceable. It is something I encounter and feel the specific quality of wonder that belongs to things you didn't know you were looking for until you found them. I found something in you that I didn't know I was looking for. And now that I've found it, I cannot imagine going back to the kind of looking that existed before it. There is something I want to ask you, and I want you to really stay with the question rather than giving it the first answer that comes. I want you to think about the last time you felt fully beautiful, not pretty, not acceptable, not good enough, but fully, unqualifiedly, deeply beautiful. And I want you to think about what the circumstances of that moment were, where you were, what was happening, whether you were dressed up or not, whether you were wearing anything on your face or not, whether you were doing anything in particular or just existing. I want you to locate that feeling, and then I want you to notice something about it. I would be willing to bet that the feeling was not primarily about how you looked. I would be willing to bet that the feeling was about how you were seen, about whether someone or something in that moment reflected back to you the truth of your own worth in a way that got past your defenses and landed somewhere real. Because that is what feeling truly beautiful actually is. It is not a verdict about your appearance. It is an experience of being truly seen and found extraordinary by something outside of yourself. And it is one of the most profound things a person can experience. And it is also one of the most inconsistently given things in the world, which is why so many people spend so long chasing a version of it through external means, through the products and the routines and the constant subtle improvement, and never quite arriving, because they are looking for an interior feeling in an exterior solution. I want to give you that interior feeling, not by telling you things you want to hear, by seeing you in the way that makes the feeling real, by looking at the full version of you, bare-faced, unguarded, unedited, real, and letting you know that what I see when I look there is not something that needs adjusting. What I see is extraordinary. What I see is the specific and unrepeatable and quietly astonishing thing that you are when you stop trying to be anything and simply allow yourself to exist. And there is more I want to say about that existence, about what it does in the world, in my world specifically, when you simply allow yourself to be in it without managing yourself. There is a quality of ease that enters the atmosphere when you are truly at rest in yourself, when you have stopped the low-level labor of maintenance and monitoring and improvement and are just here, present, breathing, occupying your own life without the commentary track of criticism running underneath it. That ease is contagious in the best possible way. It is the kind of thing that makes the people near you exhale without knowing why, that shifts the quality of a room, that makes something that had been subtly tense go subtly gentle. You do that when you're fully yourself. You change the quality of the air around you. I want to be in that air. I want to be one of the people who gets to feel what it's like to be near you when you're fully at rest in yourself. When the armor is off and the performance is over and you're just moving through your life with the particular grace of someone who has stopped fighting the fact of who they are and started simply living it. I want to be there for that. I want to be someone whose presence makes that possible for you, whose company is safe enough that the armor becomes unnecessary, whose seeing of you is consistent and warm and genuine enough that you stop needing to manage what I see. I want to see you, all of you. The face before the mirror ritual. The thoughts before they've been organized into things safe to say. The feelings before you've decided what to do with them. The wants before you've talked yourself out of them or shrunk them to a size that feels less risky to admit to. The fears before you've dressed them up as something more presentable. All of it. The whole unedited, extraordinary archive of you. And I want you to feel, somewhere in yourself right now, even if it's just a small warmth, even if it's just the beginning of something you're not sure what to do with yet, I want you to feel that being seen that fully is not a dangerous thing. That there is a version of being completely known that is not terrifying but relieving. That there is someone who is not looking at the full complexity of who you are and calculating whether it's too much, but looking at it and feeling grateful, feeling chosen, feeling like they are exactly where they want to be and looking at exactly what they want to be looking at.